Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the WRC Creator Series. It's another Monday night. It's another time for some of your favourite rally creators to hit the virtual track and, well, show off some of their skills. And we're only 10 seconds in. I've already called it a track, John. Let's call it off. We're done. Good night, everyone.
Well, tracks, they are kind of very small tracks on this these
Yeah.
stages. Rally Greece, I'm not sure if you can even call it a road. So you know what? Track is an actual adjective to describe them. So good on you.
I'll count it because you go down the beaten track, don't you? That's where I'm going to go with that one. And obviously, when we head to where we're heading this weekend, obviously, there's probably quite a few of those for our drivers to try and ensue as well. I'm so thankful to be back in the commentary box. I noticed my middle name is once again changed to Timmy. But no, we've got a fantastic event coming up, and of course, the new season coming our way for all of our drivers as well.
Yeah, new season, new stages, and a lot of things to be careful of because the majority of last season was four-wheel drive. Now, I can say by
Hey, get
looking at
the
the
fuck out
calendar
of here,
that
Ryan.
there are more than two events, I think, in rear-wheel drive. So it's going to
Fine
be
gentleman
such
here.
a challenge for the drivers to just get to grips with the older cars and
Alright.
to make sure
We were pretty
realistically to
close. I
be
saw you a lot on the time trial
on
leaderboard.
performance right from the season start, basically.
Yeah, it's going to be one that our drivers really have to try and get their grips with early. Of course, Greece in itself isn't an easy rally. It's one that quite often they'll face peril both left and right, and sometimes even in front of them as they progress through the stages on the course that they find themselves on. And of course, the cars aren't always the easiest to drive. H2 rear-wheel drive is where we start our season off this time out. And as you can see on the screens, it's Ryan choosing the Alpine Renault A110, with Aerotech choosing the Ford Escort RS Mark 1, which I think is going to be a bit of a fan favourite.
Yeah, I think to be honest, all of the cars in this class are fan favorites. They're like peak nostalgia for people that like watching old WRC content or stuff on, I don't know, Instagram and other media channels because it's always things that are, especially nowadays, taken for highlight reels and stuff like that. So you often see Mark 1 Escorts, especially Mark 2 Escort, cars like the Fiat 131 Abarth. And yeah, obviously the Alpine, one of the best looking cars of all time as a rally car, in my opinion. So, yeah, a lot of things to get used to. And as you were saying, in terms of the driving, a lot of differences as well. Quite snappy, a lot less margin for error because the suspension isn't as good. But also, you've got that rear wheel drive that means that if you get into a slide or you do something wrong, let's say, just as a generality, you can't have the recovery that a four-wheel drive will get you. You can just plant the throttle in four-wheel drive and the car will recover. Rear-wheel drive, if you do that, you're just spinning out as if you were in a Formula One car on a track, TK.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is quite possibly one of the slowest shakedowns I think we've ever seen on the Creator Series channel, doing 30 or just above 30 kilometers an hour in the old Ford Escort, wanting not to inflict too much damage before they start for the major runnings or the major stages here in Greece. But Aerotech is looking rather relaxed, at least in the cockpit, running in chase cam as well. It all seems to be coming together for, well, let's just say a little bit of chaos.
Yes, I can only presume that this is because of tire wear. In Greece, the tires do take a lot of punishment, especially in rear-wheel drive classes. So you want to keep the tires as good as possible until the later stages of the rally. So if you're going, especially for a softer compound, which may be the case for Aerotech, you've got to try and preserve them for as much as possible. And so tiptoeing through the shakedown, we've even seen it in real life where drivers take a different set of tires or a not optimal set of tires for a shakedown just to be able to preserve them for the actual first stages in themselves. So it's a viable strategy and quite a solid one, in my opinion, if you're looking for those extra tenths of a second.
Yeah, absolutely right. And either Aerotech has realised that he was going to be slightly late to the party, or he's just got a little bit bored of driving that Ford ever so slightly through the hills of Greece, but has decided to put his foot down. We finally hit the 100 km/h mark, and the Ford is, well, bouncing beautifully through the shakedown here, and will be very thankful to get an extra set of tyres, as you previously alluded to. Obviously, you will be requiring them to make it through all of the stages, and I thought that drift was going to end up in the side of the cliff for about half a second, but unfortunately, or well, fortunately for Aerotech, he does make it to the end. Fresh set of tyres will be coming his way, and now he's going to be locked and loaded for the rest of the rally.
Yes, indeed, and hopefully you'll have to be very locked in on this rally because, as you've seen by the shakedown footage, there's so many rocks, obstacles, sheer drops on the sides of the road, and even the road surface itself very, very bumpy. So there's a lot of technicality in the driving. For example, if you want to get on the brakes as late as possible, sometimes in these cars it's not possible at all, because you'll nosedive on the front and then the rear end will just swap ends on you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it's a very technical driving, but as many people will say, I'm sure, in the interviews today, that it's more a marathon rather than a sprint. And I know the pun is right there about Athens and all of that. But yes, it's one of those things that you have to take into account, that you might be able to win stage one, but you've got to be there at the end. And especially being the first event of our calendar getting underway with Ryan now, apparently Bob Littlemore there, as I saw, as the co-driver, I guess. Yeah, it's going to be tricky, and they want points on the board. So yes, here we go. This season has officially started, TK.
Certainly has indeed, and it feels like it's been a long time coming. You've had a whole DLC drop in the midst of the 2 seasons. Obviously, if you haven't been able to catch that, check that out on both our channels and the EA Sports WRC channels as well. You can see some of our creators taking us through some of the new content that came with that DLC drop as well. Aerotech once again joins Ryan L on the opening stage of this rally, and Ryan will be doing his usual. He'll be talking us through a stage slightly later on in over the course of the rally, but it's fascinating to see already the different lines, the different styles that both Aerotech and Ryan are starting to encompass.
Yeah, you can see the amount of effort that it takes, because Ryan, I think, has his webcam mounted to the top of his monitor, and it is shaking about because you have to do so many little corrections, even when driving in a straight line, that, you know, it's high effort, high intensity, and for some of the longest stages here can take more than 10 minutes. So you've really got to keep concentration up high. With these new stages, I think this is starting off with Harvati, which is the longest new stage in the game. My favourite, I must be said. You've got to really keep calm and consistent because of those water splashes and change in rhythm in the stages. You've got some very hairpin-esque sections, which are very, very reminiscent of the old or other stages in the game in Greece. And then you've got some quite open and flat out sections. So it's sort of a compromise in terms of setup and also in terms of driving style to just try and get the most time out of it. But usually drivers will try and settle in on the parts of the stage that they don't like and then try and push it on the sections where they feel more confident. And I think we'll see a lot of that today.
Yeah, I think we almost certainly will, especially as they get into a bit of a rhythm. I know quite a few of the drivers have been running, or at least practicing, the early stages of what they have access to, and it's so important to make sure that they get the crucial first stage done, or the first stage done to a good degree. It kicks off the rally in so many different ways. If you get yourself into that rhythm, quite often you'll find yourself with the ebbs and flows certainly running in your favour as well. If you're watching along the live chat, let us know who, well, if you're here supporting anybody, if you're just loving rally as much as Daniel1989 over in the Twitch chat.
Henry's gone for a spin already, just off camera there. He's trying to recover it, but I think he's got beached on the side of the road. This might be a heavy reset penalty. Yeah, 5 seconds reset. Lucky to get away with that, but yeah, it goes wrong so quickly. I think what happened there is he put a wheel over the edge of the road and then just got stuck effectively on that little mound of earth that you can see, which is basically on every outside of corners here. And so you can just let time slip away from you so easily on these stages. What can feel like a very minor mistake can end up turning into 10, 20, if not 30 seconds of penalty. And need I remind everybody, there are DNF places here where if you go off the road, your car is deemed as irrecoverable, and that's the end of your competitive rally, as you get a 15-minute penalty or so. So it can be devastating if you push a little bit too hard, especially on the first couple of stages, as Henry Cookie is taking some very optimistic cuts, let's call them.
Optimistic, but sometimes they work out the best for a few of our drivers, and you're alluding to those DNF areas. Someone who is well aware of that is Ambient Mike, who joins us in the chat as well, and they've said that's 2 for 2 H2 Greece Creator Series that have fallen off a cliff, and I tend to say that they aren't necessarily the best result if you want to fall off a cliff and try and continue the rally. But alas, you do continue through, and that is exactly how you want to run. Wixie in the chat, not a massive rally fan, but a massive fan of the Creator Series. Mainly an F1 guy, but rally's still good nevertheless. That is the spirit. We love being able to see and share the other side to motorsport that obviously quite often, if you are here to watch the F1, you don't necessarily tune into. But it's good to have you along.
Yeah, I think it's great to enjoy different forms of motorsport. I think every branch of motorsports currently has something different to offer. What we have here mainly is scenery and also driving experience. The drivers know that they don't know every single stage perfectly, so they're sort of driving more with intuition than they are with absolute certainty, and that leads to some very interesting moments. As I thought JPH was going all the way down the bank there, just the car not rotating enough. I think he's in the Mark 1 Escort, it looks like. So it's really, really tricky. He's in the Avenger, I'm being told, actually. So yeah, again, it's really interesting to see the different car choices. This car class has two different dynamics, with very high-powered cars but heavy cars, and then low-powered but lightweight cars like the Hillman Avenger, the Alpine, and if I remember correctly, the Mark 1 Escort as well is quite lightweight. So you'll see a very different car choice depending on whether people want extra power or more grip and maneuverability. So JPH going on the safe side there of maneuverability.
Yeah, we've got a real mix of cars amongst our creators. Vlembar obviously in the top left choosing the Fiat 131, and we've seen the Hillman Avenger coming out as well, and Aerotech choosing the Ford Escort, and Ryan Shakymore in the Alpine Renault 110. And obviously, as you said, there's different priorities for different drivers, whether they like a different type of driving style. And again, that's something that kind of branches across different types of motorsport as well. It obviously slightly less so in other factors where they are limited to one car or one car class. But in this sort of situation, not only can you choose your setup and choose how you want to run the car, you also get to choose kind of the car that can then be impacted upon as well.
Yeah, indeed, and I'd also add to that setups are very specific to each individual driver. There's not necessarily one thing that works for everybody, so you get a dynamic where drivers will choose a completely different setup or a completely different car and get to within the same couple of tenths of seconds sometimes. So it's a really sort of open category of motorsports where you can express your style more than drive to a set parameter of what the car needs to go fast. Especially with these older cars, it just comes down to just confidence most of the time. And as you can see, a lot of our drivers have a lot of confidence. I must say, they are pushing very, very hard for stage 1 of this rally.
Everyone has found that it's a new season. They all want to win as well. There's such a competitive spirit amongst all of these creators. Nobody wants to go home with an early DNF, but also they all want to be competitive when they reach these sort of stages. And they're already pushing at an incredible rate of knots to try and, well, come out on top after the first stage. Of course, we've got a considerable amount of rounds for our drivers to deal with. Obviously, it's not just a one-and-done situation, as we've never had really in the Creator Series rally, but there are quite a few, and you can find all of the rounds in our Discord if you come to an exclamation mark Discord in the chat. Oh, we got a mistake there for Henry Cookie. That's a DNF as well.
That is what I was talking about earlier. I did not expect it to happen right now. Off the road goes Henry Cookie, and that, as you can see, is a 16-minute penalty right there. That is devastating for him. He was looking on the limit, but quite confident. And all it takes is that one mistake. All it takes is that one little lapse of concentration, and off down the roadside, irrecoverable car. You can't get it back up the bank. And he didn't manage to stop it in time and get the reset going. So he will restart on stage 3, if I'm correct. But yeah, that's a devastating blow to the start of his season, that's for sure. That's one good thing, though, about Rally, is that we have the power stage at the end where you can still get points.
Yeah, those 5 points from the power stage, I think, will be critical for Henry now if he wants to try and score a good outcome here in Greece. And everybody else, I'm sure that news will share or spread like wildfire amongst the creators. It's quite often that the creators know before about a DNF before we often do. Up in the commentary box, obviously we caught that one on camera, but when issues happen, like Kamikaze's infamous drowning in the river a couple of weeks ago, the creators all knew about that before we even did.
For context, everyone, the car overturned and continued moving, and so he could not reset the car. Just wanted to add a little bit of context to that.
Yeah, that's pretty sensible.
No drivers were hurt during the filming of Creator Series.
Oh, it's caught me off guard again, damn it. We'll progress through. Vlembar is looking almost accurate as ever. And JPH as well in the Hillman Avenger. Little tap there, almost on set of the car, and could have almost got off the edge. Very, very lucky to recover that one. But if there's one, well, I suppose if there's one driver we know can always recover it, it's probably pretty much everyone that drives in the Creator Series at the moment. But JPH is always one of them that seems to be able to save the car quite often when we don't think it's possible.
Yeah, he's got a lot of background in rally, and so a lot of knowledge of how drivers cope with the stages, how they mentally prepare themselves, and so he's a very committed person into a lot of things, and that means that it translates onto the rally stages, and that he's always willing to give 110%, and you can see in the driving that he's always feeling that grip level, just waiting for the car to bite sometimes into the corners, but it does mean that he's closer to the limit but safer on the limit as well than some of the drivers that just go flat out without thinking. But that's the beauty of rally, is that you have those two types of drivers. Some drivers that drive like Colin McRae and either win it or bin it. Talking about winning or binning it, Ryan has been off and he has got a puncture, and I do not think he has a spare tyre. That is disastrous for Ryan if that is the case. He'll be able to get it to the end of the stage, but he just clipped the bank into basically the second to last turn, and went all the way up the rocky bank face, and where Aerotech is coming to right now, he went up that bank face and got a puncture there on the rocks. So that is devastating for Ryan, as I think, yeah, he's not happy about that whatsoever, because he has to drive the next stage with that punctured front left tyre.
Well, this could be interesting. He was originally meant to come and commentate the second stage, or at least do it as he was doing a live run, and he drops all the way down to, I think, P30 on the board overall there. Just caught a glimpse of Becky B, 6th overall on the standings, as Aerotech comes across the line as well. That probably could change Ryan's decision on which stage he does indeed want to do the live run on broadcast, on, especially if he's only got 3 wheels left on that Alpine. More cars and more drivers coming across the finish of the opening stage. JPH and Vlembar will be next, or at least 2 of those next in line to come towards that checkered flag, and both of them looking incredibly picture perfect. And it still baffles me, we're 7 seasons in, Isa, it still baffles me how well Vlembar drives with the controller.
Yeah, he's just dialed in. He's got that to perfection. That's what happens when you drive something for years and years without changing anything, is you just get into that rhythm. And I think that's how I describe Vlembar. He's able to drive at 99% just all of the time. And with those little inputs, it could almost fool you. If the wheel input was a little bit smoother, you could fool everybody by saying he would be on the wheel. But yeah, especially in these rear-wheel drive cars, it blows my mind that he can just navigate these stages most of the time without mistakes. And I've tried it. I have failed many times on controller. So yeah, it's a skill that I think is vastly underrated. And it's also really good to know that at least in some games you can be competitive on the controller, because it's not the case for every game, and I think the balancing is done very well, actually.
Oh, absolutely. When I first picked up WRC, I was running a controller myself, and somewhere out there is a VOD where I think it was either Gareth or Rob crashed out. They called me in to cover their little preview event they used to run on their own channels. And I came in controller, crashed into the same hay bale. The other one might have DNF'd on slightly earlier on. So at least there's consistency amongst all of it as well. But I'm not, well, I'm okay on controller. Obviously wasn't very adept jumping into a rally car with one.
You have to start somewhere, I guess. I used to drive on controller up until about 2016, if I remember correctly, and back on Dirt 3 and even Dirt 2, if I remember correctly, and it was a great experience back then, because especially with some of the nippier cars, you can really chuck the car into the corners quite aggressively on controller if you have it set up correctly. And I think that's what Vlembar takes to perfection, is being able to use those quick inputs on the controller to sort of negotiate the oversteer and negotiate the imbalance that the controller creates. And it's a different art form, and if you ask them to go to a wheel, it would get a lot more difficult for them, and then if you asked us to go to controllers, then it would be very tricky for us as well. And so perfecting your art is one of those things where you have to choose a lane and stick to it, basically. And you have to, I respect anybody driving on any device. If you can see the effort they put in, and it's remarkable.
Oh, absolutely. And whether it's a controller, whether it's your first wheel, whether it's a sim setup that you spent probably far too much money on, pardon you. Sorry, I had a bit of a cough. It's fascinating to see just how well not only a game like this brings together, but also the art of rallying as well. It's fantastic, and across everybody that enters the club over the RaceNet week, it's just lovely to see the entire community really coming together. I mean, if you look at as we head into, well, we're on the final few days of this opening stage at the moment. We've got 351 people that have entered the rallies this week, and I'm sure that will go up overnight as more people watch this and remember they're meant to be doing this club and the club's come back. But it's fascinating to see how well attended everything is.
Indeed, I think a lot of people enjoy competing against people with the same sort of like mind, of just wanting to enjoy, or for the people at the top of the leaderboard wanting to enjoy and be competitive. You know, there's quite a few events that try and do the same thing, but you know, it's very difficult to strike a balance between enjoyability and competitiveness. And I think certainly on driver feedback, we've reached that stage where I think a lot of people just want to tune in to try and beat the people that you can see on screen right now. We get a lot of comments before and after the live stream about, oh, I got 2 seconds off of you on this stage, and oh, I lost 3 seconds on that stage. And it's really remarkable with features like RaceNet to see the level of detail that you can get out of the stages, and even some people going as far as analyzing the different braking inputs and turning inputs from each stage. And you know, you rarely get that kind of thing in virtual motorsports, and I find it remarkable that 350 plus people come together each week to share their same passion. It's a wonderful environment to be part of, and yeah, I will say once again, it's only round one, but I'm looking forward to the entirety of this season once again, both in the commentary box and off a cliff somewhere when I'm driving my own stage.
I'm hoping at some point I get another opportunity to jump into well, a virtual rally car. Obviously, it wasn't necessarily the best outing when I did it for the first time a couple of months ago now, and obviously we fated day of Central European Rally and some rear-wheel drive cars that might have been the commentator's pick. Alas, we can't confirm or deny whether we called our own fate on that one. But I'm looking forward to seeing if we can get a chance and get a drive as well.
I wouldn't say no to that. Oh, Ryan, wow, that was close. So close. I think on that punctured tyre, he just couldn't get the turn in. And thankfully, for one time out of 100 where the rocks on the outside actually save you, it happened to him at that point. But he's going to have to be so careful, because if you do puncture that tyre and if it goes all the way down to the rim, he's going to have no turning ability. And more importantly, because it's rear-wheel drive, perhaps no traction. So a bit like in the Creator Series F1, when you get a puncture, sometimes you won't be able to make it back to the pits, or in this case, to the end of the stage. So it's going to be very tricky for him, but I hope he makes it and he gets a new tyre on the car. The pace hasn't been devastating for the moment. He was 34th. Overall on that first stage, even with the puncture and mishap. So a lot of drivers taking it cautiously here, but once again, Vlembar is out in front for the moment in the standings, basically starting off this season where he wanted to finish it last season.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to see how they do, and obviously with that puncture, about 34th, obviously he got it considerably later on into the stage, and when he goes into the second stage, not being able to repair a puncture, at least from what we can tell, not being able to repair a puncture, that will significantly hurt his time in towards the second run. But for everything else, it's going to be pretty much smooth sailing as we head from stage 3 onwards. Hopefully he'll get his mojo back, and hopefully we'll see some more blistering times being set.
Ryan's off the road there, very lucky, just commentating on the second screen that we have. Yeah, he just went off the road down the bank, but he managed to get stopped, I think, by a tree, and so he's managed to get a reset penalty rather than a DNF, but it goes from bad to worse. And especially on this downhill section, you can see he's turning in, trying to get the car rotated, but nothing is happening. And yeah, just sliding into the rocks. It's probably going to go from bad to worse here downhill, but as long as he can get down to the water splash at the bottom of this section, it should be okay. There's quite a few corners between here and there, so it's very very tricky, and especially in the braking sections, he's going to have to hit the handbrake quite a few times. And the problem is also is you want to preserve the car at this point, and that is very very difficult when you're bashing all of these rocks all the time. We've got 45 minutes of repair time per service, but I can tell you that goes by in a flash. If you have suspension damage, radiator damage, exhaust damage, you can realistically repair 4 or 5 at a push components per service. But that adds up very, very frequently, and so Ryan's starting off on the back foot here.
He certainly is, but if you look at the delta that he's got at the bottom, well, bottom right of his screen, that's effectively, oh, he spun the car around. That won't be too happy for himself. Can he survive? Oh, I thought he was about to send it off the edge of the cliff there. That would have been the best performance for Ryan, but I was just getting to his delta at the bottom right. He was actually up in the early stages of the run, about 1.4 as well, 1.14 seconds, and even with three tyres, that's impressive.
Yeah, as long as the tire is on the rim, or still on the rim, I mean, the rubber actually still on the steel tire, it can still give you quite a bit of grip. However, as soon as that tire delaminates and then you're down to the metal rim, you've just got no grip. And I think that time loss reflects that. He was okay up to the second split, and then the tire probably delaminated after that, and it's game over from there on out. But because these cars have a lower speed than, for example, the Rally 1 cars, the time loss will be a little bit less. However, it will be 10 times more frustrating to drive. As you can see the time difference there with Aerotech crossing the line basically at the same time, having started a little bit later on this stage. So yeah, very, very tricky there for Ryan. But I think he'll be glad to make it to the end of the service, to the next service, sorry. As I was just noting, he has lost effectively near enough 30 seconds to Aerotech in that
EA
stage
Sports,
alone.
it's not.
Yeah, he lost about 30 seconds to Aerotech, 31 seconds over his personal best as well. I'm sure we'll get Ryan in for an interview very, very shortly just to see well, not only how his car's doing, maybe how his head's doing as well after that. So I don't know, I've been trying to think we can get him in for a bit of a chat now. Let's see if we can drag him in. Well, Ryan, first of all, welcome in. Second of all, talk us through how that second stage went. It looks like you might be missing a few components of your car.
Yeah, so I got a puncher right at the end of stage 1. The last 2 corners, I think it was. It's like a right-hander. I just took a bit too much and lost the back end. So I had a puncher, and I thought, oh, the game will give me a spare because I assigned it. Didn't give me one on stage 2, and it popped as I got to split free as I went into a left turn. Lost the car, nearly fell off the cliff and terminaled, but thankfully I fell down a tiny bit and obviously reset the car, and then lost 30-odd seconds at the end because of the puncher. So it's a bit frustrating, but you can't help it, can you? It's these glitches and stuff happen all the time. So, but luckily my damage isn't too bad, so that's a benefit, I guess. It could have been worse, but hey ho, gotta get on with it. On to the next 2 stages.
Yeah, I was about to say, you've only lost about 30 seconds to Aerotech, so a good result is still on the cards, and with people like Henry Cookie already DNFing in stage 1, this is a marathon, not a sprint, isn't it?
It is. I didn't even know Henry died already, so that's a very big surprise. But yeah, me and Aero, I think it's stage 1. We were a second behind, but I lost 12 seconds because I had a bit of a screen freeze with the game, and I got stuck on a bank and then tried to turn around with an F1 wheel. It's not the best thing to turn around in a tight area, so wasn't ideal. But yeah, I think me and Aero are quite close on pace, so it should be quite a good little battle between us, because he loves this car, these classes. I don't like this class of car, so it's going to be fun. I mean, my aim focus for this rally is to finish, because in practice I've died a few times, and I think after these next 2, it gets a bit easier for me in terms of my confidence around these rallies. But the newer stages are proved to be tricky for me at the minute.
Yeah, just a disclaimer for folks at home, no content creators were harmed in the filming of this episode. But Ryan, talk us through how your mentality is looking for the rest of the stages. Obviously, you've got some time to try and make back, and are we going for the attitude of we're just going to send it, hope and pray that it stays to the road, or maybe kind of dialing it back a little bit to be conservative, get the car across the line?
Well, firstly, making sure I've got a spare tire assigned, and it's actually on the screen. So I've just checked that, and it is. I'm gonna go full guns blazing now. It's the reverse of I think it's the reverse of the previous stage, or stage 1. So gonna really attack this one. I feel more comfortable on the reverse of this stage, in relevance to the first stage we did. So I should feel a bit more confident, and I think the aim is to get. I think I did a 10:36 on the first stage. Probably get 10:20 is the aim. I think. Luckily with no damage and no punches, pun intended, of course. But we shall see. But it's just a finish, really.
Aiming
Amazing
for the
stuff.
top 20 on the leaderboard, I must say. If you can do that, that's impressive pace. So I wish you all the best for that one.
Thank you.
Just
God,
one
appreciate
more
it.
question before we let you go, Ryan. You mentioned
Yep.
about commentating a stage as well. I think we let you off the hook for stage 2.
Yeah,
Are you-
definitely not this.
No, if you're
Definitely
still
not on this
interested,
stage.
obviously feel free to let us know.
Yeah, I'll give you a buzz. So
Okay.
either one of you three, but it'll probably be one of the 5-kilometer stages, I think,
Yep.
further along. But we'll see. Depends on where I am, because I do want to sweat. Because it's since Henry's retired, and I'm not sure where Vlembar is at the minute. It could be open again, like it was in Mexico. So yeah, we'll have to see. Yes.
Amazing stuff. Well, best of luck for you, and hopefully no more punctures coming your way, good sir.
Fingers crossed.
I'll catch you soon.
That's a jinx if I've ever heard one. I just want to say
I
that
couldn't
I am not
possibly know what
responsible.
you're on about.
Holding my hands up there. I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything.
Folks at home, you have it noted on the record that I'm using for once might not have jinxed a Create Series driver.
That's okay. I'll offset it with 4 by the time we've reached to stage 6. As they are off into the 3rd stage here. Again, this stage will take approximately 10 minutes for some of the drivers at the top end here, but it's such a tricky stage, especially this reverse version, because you start off with the very twisty part of the stage, and then it gets faster as you go on. So you've got to really sort of take into account tire wear if you haven't changed tires, and you've got to just make sure to pace yourself a little bit. And it can be so tempting as the stage gets faster to sort of commit more to the corners, and then you get caught out by the occasional hairpin or the occasional heavy braking zone that has a little bit of a bump or compression in it, and all of a sudden you're off the road and you're back to square one. So it's all about a rally of confidence, but also a rally of knowing when to limit yourself, knowing when to say, I'm going to back out of this one, it's not worth it. And for drivers that have made mistakes, got punctures, or even gotten away with a mistake, they'll carry those lessons, and it may pay dividends towards the end of the rally, because if you've had a perfect rally up until the end, you're so encouraged to push, for example, for more power stage points, that in the end you can just go a little bit too much. So I'd say if you want to make a mistake, make it in the first couple of stages, so that way you've got time to build your confidence back up, and time to sort of regain that ultimate pace, and you could even end up with quite a good result at the end.
Yeah, not only to get your confidence back, but of course to find your rhythm once again. It's probably harder to find it in the latter stages, considering you've been pushing so long, almost probably coming up to an hour, hour and a half by that point. And if you lose that rhythm, lose that mojo, and you don't have an opportunity, you've got a limited number of stages left. And once you hit that point, not only are you running out of track, quite literally and physically, but also you're probably running on not much energy anymore. So it's hard to get back into the rhythm of things. So I agree. And if you're going to make mistakes, make them early.
Yes, well, I can, unfortunately for me, talk from experience from last season. I think it was round 7 with the Seat Cordoba, where I crashed on, I think it was stage 2, and got a double puncture. And it was basically from then on out just push 110%. That was a lot easier than having a skill issue of the PC sort. And having to do the power stage of Rally Kenya and the Rally 1 cars, just having waited for about 10 minutes for my time slot to arrive. And then you're pushing on the stage, you know, you're going 110% because you need the points. And all of a sudden, you're sort of out of practice with it. It sounds a bit strange. You've been driving for about an hour beforehand, but all of a sudden, all of the things you start second guessing them and sort of thinking, oh, this sort of went wrong earlier. Will it go wrong now? Whereas if it's gone wrong, you can just say, okay, well, I know what I need to do to have it go wrong, so let's just avoid that. And for Aerotech, then it nearly went wrong on the braking there, as he just drifted towards the inside there. And if you clip these rocks here at this high speed, it can be very, very devastating, as I think this was the section that Ryan struggled with that puncture. And thankfully, it's a lot easier to do with 4 tires.
Absolutely, and there's a great quote from the Top Gun films. And it comes from, obviously, the main protagonist. It's don't think, just do. And quite often I make to say allegiances back to rally, especially when you find yourself in stages like this. The moment you start thinking, that's the moment you tend to be in trouble. You just have to go with how your mind's telling you to respond, listen to the notes that are being pumped into your ears through every single twist and turn. But the minute you stop to think, go, oh, actually, is that really correct? That's kind of when things start to go wrong. You've missed that split-second opportunity for Vlembar just clipping the inside of the cliff face.
That was very, very close. And I think we've got the perfect example of 2 drivers that are completely opposites. Vlembar very on the limit all the time, pushing flat out, and JPH just being a lot more conservative. I'd have to maybe add something that's just an opinion for me, I guess, this stage, that you have 2 types of drivers, once again, those that think a lot and those that just push flat out. And for the drivers that push flat out, thinking is the worst thing they can do. Trying to calculate stuff, a bit like Colin McRae. He's best going flat out, as Henry Cookie's having all sorts of disasters, going all over the rocks. He's gotten away with it, but my days is he pushing flat out. I think he's wanting to prove a point on this one. But, you know, those type of drivers, they cannot drive at 90%. They'll start making mistakes, whereas people like JPH and, you know, to quote some real-life drivers, Sebastian Ogier, Sebastian Loeb, Richard Burns as well, if you want to go back to a bit to the past. They were better just calculating the long game, just trying to get points on the board and making sure that other people made mistakes. Whoa, Henry's getting so lucky at the moment. Or is it calculated? It might just be calculated that he knows he can go slightly up that rock face without having any major things happen to him. But yeah, in rally, where you've got such a pace advantage, it can be advantageous to sort of force the thinking drivers to push over the limit to try and catch you. And it's sort of a game of cat and mouse, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic comparison. Obviously, that is where the 2 different breeds of drivers necessarily break off from one another. And I think we even have examples in rally here in the Creator Series. I think Kamikaze quite infamously is one of those drivers that, if he was trying to do 90%, sometimes that's when you start to see him make mistakes. If you look at the season finale last time out, he was trying to bring the car home. He was just trying to, you know, make sure that he didn't make any major mistakes, and that's when they actually crept in. He is so good when he is sending that car flying sideways, because he's just so confident, but also he's not thinking about what he's doing. He's just letting every part of his body act in a beautiful orchestra.
Yeah, that's it. You're 100% committed, confident, and sort of just taking in all of the data and processing it. If you start to second guess yourself and start to relax, as you would do, for example, in a DRS train in the Formula 1 game, you just relax, say, okay, this is part of a race where I just don't want to make any mistakes. You start looking at the data, tire temperatures, tire wear, start thinking about your strategy, and then all of a sudden you spin off at a turn because you applied the throttle a bit too quickly. And that can happen so easily in rally, with especially the difficulty in visibility. As you can see, many of these corners are essentially blind before you reach the apex, and so you have to sort of go into the corner with that extra bit of, oh, Ryan, wow, just turning the wrong. I think he wanted to do a Scandinavian flick into that turn, and it just didn't rotate afterwards. I think he scared himself possibly a little bit in there, as yeah, very late on the brakes, but he got away with it. And that's the thing, is that if Ryan is confident that he knows he can recover that situation, he'll gain that time back, no problem whatsoever.
Oh, absolutely, and I have no doubt that he's one of those drivers that is able to try and recover from an early setback, and especially we've got a considerable amount of stages still left in the rally, lots of time to be made up and also lost by other drivers. Let's not count out mistakes from some of our other contestants. It's so easy to do at Greece. Not only is there cliff edges pretty much every single stage, but there's rocks, there's hillsides, there's sometimes even water splashes that can unsettle the car. So there's a whole host of things that can come at you rather quickly if you're not expecting them.
Yeah, one of the things that surprised me are the water splashes, because Greece is not one of those countries where you tend to assimilate, water splashes high up in the mountains, but they do exist, they are there, and when it's not too dry, they do have huge puddles of water in them, and they can actually cause damage to the car in some years. We've seen it on WRC, so something to pay attention to, but they can also just unsettle the car. It's interesting to note the difference in driving style that I'm seeing between people like Ryan that are carrying the speed into the corner and creating like a sort of a Formula 1-esque V shape of the corner, so going quite wide out at the apex and just rotating the car, maybe using the handbrake and getting on throttle very early to try and carry the speed out of the corner. And people like JPH that are rotating the car in more sort of classic way, let's say, to rally, just carrying that drift all throughout the turn, just a stable angle, I don't want to say really which one is fastest at this stage, but they can both be very viable options, and it's interesting to see those differences with the backgrounds of drivers that we have, with Ryan being more from a track racing background and JPH being more a sort of rally 100% person.
Absolutely, and I think if you look back, it goes to what other games or what other driving styles you might have incorporated in your, I want to say career, and that's probably not the best way of saying it, but obviously in your lifetime and in years gone by, do you have maybe a circuit racing background and that's where you get the slow and fast out, more traditional style of taking a corner like a V, or do you have it in a rally sense where you want to drift that car sideways and basically keep the power on as long as you possibly can, keep the revs high? And I think, as you said, you can't tell which one's faster, but I think personally for me it depends on how well executed it is from the individual. Are you confident in going for that slow and fast out, or are you just maybe trying sending the car sideways because you're told that's the best way of doing it? If it works for you and it's making you quick, then I think there's no arguable right or wrong way to do it. Yes, there may be a traditional method of doing it if you look back through the history and through the generations, but at the end of the day, you're always going to be more comfortable. Sorry, you'll be quicker with what you're more comfortable with.
Yeah, and as I like saying about any driving game, there's always a way to go faster. So even if you know the proper technique, even if everybody says that's the way to do it, there's always a chance that you can find something faster or a specific way to go into the turn. So that's what I love about rally, is that the experimentation all the time. It's not a defined art where if you break an X marker board, then you will make the corner or you won't make the corner, and there's always a degree of interpretation, and a truly perfect stage very rarely, if at all, happens. And so that's what encourages, I think, everybody to come back and try again and again on these stages, is the fact that you're always chasing that elusive golden stage, and it very rarely gets to you, but when it happens, you get close to it, it feels so satisfying because you feel all of these different techniques coming together. And dare I say, the fastest drivers can amalgamate multiple techniques into one stage. For example, using trail braking on this open section that we see our drivers going through now, and then using the more traditional aggressive rally style on the hairpins. There's something to be said for that, and it takes years of experience. That's one thing that I enjoy seeing as well, is that our creators, some of them that didn't try rally before joining the creator series, they have gotten so good at just driving the stages and being consistent. Talking about one of those drivers, Ancephalosis, who appears to be having a very confident start to the rally, it must be said.
I think we were 11-16.
He's looked absolutely incredible at the moment, and he mentioned before the broadcast started that he has moved his monitor around, hence why the camera, I believe, has moved to his left-hand side, giving us a slightly side-on angle now for himself in the broadcast. But it's fascinating to see just how much sometimes small changes like that can contribute together to just more confidence. You get a more connected feeling with the car, and overall you're actually going to be able to probably run a little bit smoother as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that get into it. The height of the monitor, the height of the steering wheel, position of the pedals. If you're not comfortable with your setup, it can cost you seconds on one stage alone. There's also the fact that some drivers like having their steering wheel in their peripheral vision, so they can see exactly what angle they're turning the wheel. Some of the drivers like to have it on the game side, for example, Vlembar, to sort of see how much angle is actually going into the steering on controller. And then other drivers will prefer it to be out of sight, out of mind. And so you've got to sort of experiment with all of those things to find the correct driving position. And as I can see there, quite a bit of time lost there for JPH, about 55 seconds off the pace if I saw that correctly. So over a 10-minute stage, I must admit, not a lot of time lost, but it adds up, see, over the kilometers.
Certainly does. We saw Ryan L was 11th over that stage, and I think Vlembar we caught just as 8th as well. So there are some incredibly quick times coming in from a few of our drivers as well, and they're already putting consistent ones down as Aerotech just reaches for the sky in the front of that car. There must have been a massive boulder on the inside that completely unsettled the Ford.
Well, I mean, that's the good thing about rally cars is they are designed to take impact a little bit. I think possibly what happened there is they got too close to the inside, got into the rut on the inside, and then it impacted the sump guard on the bottom of the car. So it's basically a flat sheet of metal designed to absorb the impacts rather than the components of your car, like the engine, the oil reservoir on the bottom of the car. So you know, if you hit that, you will just get ricocheted up into the air. It's happened many a time in the WRC and in other competitions. So yeah, Aerotech really struggling here in these hairpins, though. I think maybe just a loss of concentration, loss of just confidence in that car at the moment. Maybe even tire wear at this point. So he's going to have a long chug to the end of this stage, as it is basically only tight turns on this very, very short stage.
Yeah, it's not an ideal one to have an early accident in, and I think, again, that's just going to unsettle the car, maybe unsettle the driver somewhat, and you've got to put that behind you, especially at a short stage, because even milliseconds of seconds sometimes count. Henry Cookie just tapping the tree there for good luck, maybe not a bit of a hug, but a bit of a love tap, and there is definitely damage to his Ford Escort RS.
Trying to find Henry's time in stage 3. There it is, 21st. So it's a good time for Henry Cookie. He's got ahead of people like JPH, Aerotech, and looking on the board for other times at the moment. I'm sure there's quite a few in the same section, because I'm looking at the lead. Oh,
Encephalosis.
Yeah, reset penalty. It happens so fast that sometimes you're just looking at a different camera, and there you go, you see a car stopped. So a lot of what I was going to say is a lot of people within that sort of 10 seconds time frame, and so on the same corner as Aerotech, just getting the wheel hooked on the inside, and when you're in rear wheel drive, it just rotates the car around. It's as if you're pressed up against a wall with the front of the car, and you're just trying to spin the tires, but nothing's happening because the front is completely lodged into whatever you're in contact with.
Yeah, it's not been unfortunate. Well, it was unfortunate for Encephalosis, not only getting stuck in the reset penalty, but rolling onto his roof as well on such a short stage. He won't be too happy about that one, as well, it's going to be an interesting one. Ryan Deflatemore still making his way through. Henry Cookie going backwards again. I don't think he's had that car forward as much as he had backwards for a considerable amount of this run so far, and I think it'll be one to forget. But that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Okay, didn't see that one coming. Good one, TK. So that's 1-1 at the moment, catching us off guard. Good stuff. I love how we're keeping score on that, and I didn't intend to start that, but here we go, I guess. Yeah, it can be very difficult. I mean, for Henry, he's trying 110% at this point, and you know, it can get away from you very, very quickly. And you know, I do sense maybe a little bit of frustration. I know he does quite a bit of practice with Ryan, for example, and the times he was setting were very competitive, so there's a possibility for it to just be a little bit of wanting to gain those seconds back, even though a 16-minute penalty, realistically, you're not catching that back anytime soon.
Yeah, I think for a lot of this, it will be not necessarily practice. That's probably the wrong way of putting it out in the air, but it will be certainly a case of you're looking ahead to the power stage. What sort of techniques can I try and drag into this? How can I understand how Greece operates with these cars? And if they can get even just half a tenth gained through the power stage, that could be absolutely critical in this bunch of creators.
Yeah, sometimes the gaps have been literally thousandths of a second, so it all comes down to that fine detail. And what we see sometimes, especially at the start of a season, is the drivers sort of the times amalgamating together a little bit more toward the end of the rally. So you'll see gaps of 10, 20 seconds at the start, and then as drivers get confident, as they maybe change the setups of the car a little bit, by the time we reach the power stage, the gaps are maybe tens of seconds or tenths of seconds, sorry, or hundredths of seconds even at some point. I think we're going to go for an interview with Aerotech as soon as he crosses the line there. 5:26, not a bad time at all. Let's see where that pans out on the leaderboard. Just outside the top 10. So it actually looks like he's lost quite a bit of time on this stage. Actually, 5:26. That will put him only in 52nd place on this leaderboard. So I'm not sure he's going to be very happy with this one. We'll have to ask him what's going on.
We certainly will. Apologies for the brief silence there. I realised I was talking and I had my mic muted, so not the first time I've done that. I'm sure it won't be the last that I've done it either. So apologies, Isa there and everybody at home as well. But yeah, we'll be interested to speak to Aerotech, see how he felt he did, and obviously maybe see if we can digest some of the mistakes. And speaking of Aerotech, well, he comes and joins us now. Aerotech, talk us through how that last stage went for yourself.
First 3 stages went really well. I don't know if it's been coming across on broadcast or not, but I'm really, really like handy in this car. It turns on the brake. You can kind of feather the throttle and slide the rear end around real nice. But the transitions from the new stages to the older stages, I guess the dirt is softer or like there's not as much grip. So we have my screen open, but I had a couple of moments here getting adjusted to the surface. Again, I don't know if it's just the tires are wearing or this physical stage just has less grip to it. But first couple of quarters, I was definitely trying way too hard and then had to go, okay, take a breather. But super fun rally, super fun cars to do here. If we could keep all 4 on the stage, I think we're in for a good result, and we're out for a good start.
Yeah, certainly with these cars being different to last season where we had mainly 4-wheel drive, do you think there's potentially an opportunity to gain a better sort of point start to the season with a lot of people struggling, it must be said, especially on these hairpins with, you know, a bit of mishaps as you had, but sometimes a lot worse than that. Do you think you can really get a good result in this one?
So I ran a test run last night, and I was provisionally in between 25th and 30th. I think I'm just a little bit too far off that, like, last upper echelon, like a top 20, I don't think is really in the cards. I don't know the stages well enough. But it just really suits my style of driving. And as I'm sure, especially you know, John, the attrition here, it is so easy just to go a little bit too fast into one corner and then you're terminal. There's nothing you could do. You're off a cliff. You're just a passenger. Actually, this happened to me like 4 seasons ago before you could redo rallies. I hit a bank and went off on the first stage and then had to watch everybody. So I looked at last night too. The attrition rate's really high. I think over 100 people who started didn't finish. So yeah, I did good in the stages I knew how to do. I think now is just like get the car to the end with no damage. Get the car to the end with no damage. And especially, yes, it's we're missing a lot of people today. Everyone on vacations or just don't want to talk to me. We could pick up some big points here, not just in the leaderboard, but in the Creator Series too.
Yeah, I think it's a good advantageous spot to be in, especially with a few drivers missing out as well. But let's look ahead to the last few, almost the second half of the rally at this moment in time. How are you feeling about your chances? Obviously, are we thinking go for power stage, or are we thinking a little bit more consistency over the course of the few runs?
So I'm on a different tire strategy. I went softs for the first 2 stages. I'm on mediums for 4 now, and then I'll be on softs for the last 3. So I'll be doing the power stage kind of on killed softs. I wish I would have had a moment of critical thinking to go, hey, there's power stage points today. Because usually I'm just like 8th if I'm lucky. I maybe should have thought of that and saved some fresher tires more towards the end because we will be on hurt tires now. But man, I get it. Just I'd love a really solid finish. I think my best finish overall ever is like 36th or 35th. So if we can get anything in the 20s today, I'd be super stoked. Again, I'm kind of actually with Ryan having his puncture, it might be pretty close here towards the end because he seems to be chipping time off of me, but I just keep not hitting anything except for that one time we won't talk about.
Currently sat 24th overall after stage 4, so it's looking good for that if you can keep this pace. But yeah, Ryan is going some. Let's put it that way. He's very motivated to get his way back up the leaderboard.
Yeah, he's a similar driver from a tarmac background, so I figured the rear wheel drive would suit him. And I heard the pain in his voice when coming back after stage 2 and going, "Yep, I had that puncture and it cost me a ton of time." And I hated it for him because we were so close on stage 1 too. But again, I think me getting away a little bit by a couple minutes, I think he beat me by like 20 seconds in the last stage. So it might be pretty close here towards the end.
Yeah, just a note on that. Actually, I'm just looking at the leaderboard here. You got IRC JPH in 18th overall, and then only 10 seconds behind. Actually, it's Ryan in 21st place, so he's ahead of you by 3 spots, but only by 4 seconds. So it looks like we might have a grandstand finish to this one.
Yeah, I had some issues in that stage too, and we'll have to see if he can keep it on the track. Because again, if you get a puncture stage 1, if he's driving angry, there's I don't want him to make a mistake, but this is prime like make a mistake territory.
Again, I didn't say anything. I'm
And
not
neither did I.
for this one.
Ryan, if you're watching this back, I didn't say anything. You didn't hear anything actually. I actually just ordered you a pizza. It's on the way.
Amazing. Well, Aerotech, best of luck for the final few stages as well, and let's see how you do in the power stage.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you so much. Well, I think there's is that a mistake when he forgot about the tyre strap that he potentially could have gone for? See, you kind of heard the revelation in his voice. He went, I've gone for the alternate tyre strap. We've gotten soft, medium, but there could have been some crucial points on offer from people that are potentially missing this week.
Yeah, I mean, possibly. I think, honestly, 3 stages on the soft tires won't be too bad. It was a strategy that I was thinking, actually, that makes a lot of sense to go basically 2 stages on a set of softs, then 4 on the hard tires, and then 3 on the softs at the end. That is, if you're not too intent on power stage points. But looking at the leaderboard right now, he might actually be better off continuing on that strategy anyway, to try and beat maybe Ryan and JPH, because if he gets, say, 2 or 3 power stage points, he'd be better off trying to on the overall standings, beat JPH and Ryan to get maybe 4 or 5 points extra.
It'll be a battle of, let's just say, mathematics in the heads of all the drivers. They're trying to figure out what's possibly the best way to try and run this course now without compromising too much of their own run, but also trying to benefit the maximum. So we're missing a couple of drivers over the course of this season. I think Jam and Kamikaze, 2 of those that won't necessarily be season regulars anymore. And we do miss them absolutely greatly, and I'm sure we will continue to miss them into the season as well. But that does, I think, open doors for some of the other drivers here who now sense a chance at some really good points.
Yeah, there's always an opportunity, and it's a new, the counters are all reset to 0. That's the whole point of it, is that you have exactly the same chance as everybody else. And if you get a good run, especially if you start the season very well, and unfortunately for Henry Cookie, he's just hit a huge amount of earth and got radiator damage into the ending hairpins of this stage. So very, very tricky. I think at this stage, I might want to say spiritually, Henry Cookie is continuing where Kamikaze sort of got his reputation from.
Interesting analogy between 2 of the drivers. He does seem to like to send it, and maybe sending it a little bit too much, but quite often you find those drivers that want to find the absolute limit of the cars that they're driving, and quite often will then dial it back from there.
Sorry to interrupt. Ryan has just rolled the car and got I thought he was going to DNF then, but he got very, very lucky. Basically just clipped the inside bank trying to hook a wheel on the inside, where you've got one of these big dips, and instead of pulling him around the corner, it just flipped him up onto the roof, so quite lucky there. But yeah, sorry to interrupt you there, TK. I just think Ryan is pushing his luck here a little bit.
No, you're all good. It's well, as you said, I think we probably won't have a stage now commentated by Ryan unless he decides to do one slightly later on, because he needs all the luck he can get after having that earlier roll and the earlier puncture as well. And as he said, the championship is now wide open. He senses a chance if he wants to try and go for it, and maybe a bit of knuckling down for Mr. Deflateable.
Yeah, indeed. You know, he's been on his roof. He's had a puncture. You know, there's not much else apart from a DNF that can go wrong at this stage. But he's building confidence. I can see the driving is quite confident in the car. He's using all of the road and a bit more, and that's a little more than the road, if you might say. But there's you know, quite a few drivers here that I'm sensing have absolute pace right now. The likes of Ryan, the likes obviously of Lembar, but also Henry Schucky's pace is very, very scary, I think, for the rest of the drivers. So it'll be interesting to see on some of the rallies which are more flat out and less about survival, whether he can just take the lead and just storm off into the distance, a bit like Kamikaze's done in the past. We'll have to wait and see. As Ryan is so close to all of these rocks. He is really on a charge right now.
Certainly is, and it's fascinating to see how close some of these drivers really want to take it to the rocks, and how much do you risk in terms of trying to gain a couple of hundredths or a couple of thousandths of a second. And that's the gamble that you're always taking in a rally like this. It's incredibly close competition, and especially over the last 6 seasons, that competition has only closed the gaps between all of the drivers, and we're down to probably less than a couple of seconds sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're seeing the part of the rally where the times start to close up, where all of the drivers sort of look at the leaderboard and go, well, okay, realistically, I'm fighting for 3rd place in the Creator Series standings, or I'm fighting for the win. And then at that pace, sort of the pacing book goes out of the window. You just go, you know, that was the strategy before. You do a Ferrari in Formula 1, basically. That was the strategy. That was plan A. We're now at plan Z, and we've just got to get on with it and just push flat out and hope for the best. And that's I'd say the most enjoyable part of the rally as a spectator, is just seeing these drivers knowing that they have to do something, and they have to do it now to unlock the pace if they want to get a good result. And you see drivers starting to experiment with the lines, experiment with the driving style, and you can see for people like JPH, for example, they're just trying to stay as smooth as possible. Same for Vlembar as well. They're two of basically the smoothest drivers, I think. Just trying to keep it calm and consistent. And at the moment, they're in 1st and 2nd overall in the Creator Series standings in terms of pace. So they've just got to wait for others to make a mistake, and they've got enough pace in the tank to push the limit a little bit more if they need to.
Well, still a long way to go, not only in the championship, but of course in the rally here this afternoon as well. This stage only marks the halfway point as we make our way through the 5th stage. We've got 4 more to run after this. They do increase somewhat in length as well, if I've got my maths correct. I might not actually have my maths correct. I think we're on the 5th stage.
We are indeed on the 5th.
Lovely. I've got my maths correct. That's a once in a lifetime explanation. Folks at home, you'll be pleased to hear. But yeah, we're about halfway through. There's still 4 stages to go, including, of course, stage 9 being the power stage. And if you're maybe a little bit down and out at the moment, how far forward do you want to try and look? Are you looking for stage 9 already?
This stage, no. Apart from the tyres, you have to commit to a strategy around, I'd say, around stage 7 at the start. So at the service at the end of stage 6, so at the end of next stage, you have to commit to a strategy. Do you want to swap tires to your 3rd and final set of tires, whichever they may be, hard or soft compound, to go for the overall standings, or do you want to go for the power stage points and just continue on these tires even though they are ailing and wearing down? That's the only thing that you can sort of lock in at this stage of the rally, because you've got so many kilometers to go, you've got so many obstacles to get around, so many things to think about, that you're better off to just keep to your pace, keep consistent, keep going, and worry about the result at the end of the rally if there is a result to be had, basically. There's already so many things to think about. You don't need another thing to occupy your mind.
Absolutely, and I think there's more opportunities for drivers to try and jump up through, especially as we head into the second half of these runs, and there's a considerable amount of time to try and make up as well. If you look at stage 6, 7, they're both over 10 kilometers long. 8 is 8, and then obviously stage 9, the power stage, is a short 5-kilometer blast. We see Aerotech, I think, just missing out on the checkered flag there. Yeah, a little bit of a venture into the bush and the shrubbery.
Yeah, so easy to do. You think you've got to the end of the stage, you're there celebrating already, and then all of a sudden something swipes you around, and you're looking a bit clumsy. But it happens, you know. That's the nature of rally. You've got to be concentrated right to the end, and if the biggest mistake that you make is a little spin on this rally, then you've had a really successful event. You know, with so many incidents, punctures, crashes. You know, even for the best drivers, they spend all of their time trying to avoid mistakes. And, you know, for Vlembar, even just drifting a little bit wide and onto those rocks that you can see there onto the left can be just a rally-ending moment. And so, you know, I think Vlembar is pacing himself very well. He's not going for overall stage wins. He's in the Fiat 131 Abarth, so possibly not the fastest car overall, but he's just trying to keep it consistent and bag some points, I guess, for the Creator Series.
I think that's how Vlembar tends to run, especially when you've got the, I don't want to say the downside of controller, because we spoke earlier about how easy it is to be competitive on a pad as well. But obviously, if you're having a car that is slightly slower, you have a little bit more time to respond in a car that won't necessarily be able to throw it in. And, well, there we go. Vlembar's not only, he's off the edge, that surely could be a reset. Well, he caught it.
Lucky. Got stopped by the bushes. He went all the way over the barrier and into the shrubbery, which has held him in place long enough for him to get a reset. I would have loved to have a camera of his face then to see how panicky that was, because I know in my experience, I'd be mashing all of the buttons to try and get a reset off there. You know, on the brake, on the handbrake, just trying to get the car stopped no matter what. Vlembar here is having a bit of a disaster toward the end of the stage, because he's basically lost concentration, quite naturally so, to be honest. He's gotten away with it, but that's the sort of nature of driving. He kept a tenth of driving behind. He was driving at 9/10, and although he made the mistake, he was going at a low enough speed where a recovery was possible. And we saw earlier with Henry Cookie, he was just driving a little bit faster, and it was that enough to put him so far over the edge. There was a DNF, but I think Vlembar will say himself that that was a really lucky one, although he won't be happy with that time lost either.
Not at all. He's one of those drivers that will be incrementally competitive. You saw JPH just slightly higher up on the standings compared to himself when he did go. And have a look at how they stood after the 5th stage. And we're back on with Ryan and Aerotech as they make their way on towards the 6th stage here in Greece. And 6th stage being 13.5 kilometers long. We're at a beautiful bit of sunset for our drivers to head their way, I believe, into the night.
Yeah, quite a tricky stage, that last stage for our creators. The first creator being in 28th place, RCJPH, followed closely by Vlembar. So not a good stage. I think our creators seem to be a little bit more in the rhythm, let's say, with being on the longer stages, and it seems to suit them quite a bit more. So they'll be happy that the next 2 stages are quite medium length, between 13 and 14 kilometers long. So yeah, as I think we could just get a switch to Vlembar, who's reviewing his incident there. So he just clipped the rock on the inside, clipped the barrier with the rear right wheel, and then it just flipped him on the rocks over the barrier, over into the ditch. And the only thing stopping him from getting that DNF was that bush that is very, very sturdy indeed. They build them different in Greece, apparently. And yeah, quite lucky there to get reset, and quite a few spectators to help him back on stage. And he's got active aerodynamics as well to boot.
Yeah, that boot acting is essentially a massive rear wing, and not necessarily as effective as he would have liked, but that tree, as you said, absolutely just holding him in place. And lucky again here to get back on towards the gravel path and manage to make it to the end. I think he'll be counting his chickens at the end of tonight.
Yeah, that's the kind of luck that you have once in a season. Every driver has it once in a season, and I'm not sure he'll be terribly happy to have used that so early on into the season. But then again, you know, you have to have a little bit of that to get to the end and to have great results. He's won the championship before, so he knows exactly what he needs to do. As Ryan getting very lucky there, just doing a little wall tap like he's a drifter. And talking about a drifter, got Aerotech right next to him, drifting his way casually through the stages as well. It's interesting to see the difference in driving style, with Aerotech being I'd say a bit smoother with the steering inputs, and yet he loves to rotate the car quite a bit. And you know, it's a very old school driving style, and one that seems so calm and consistent, and yet he's really fast on the times. Fascinating.
It's interesting because when you were talking about how all the drivers look, I was just going to say, in terms of how they sit and how they hold the wheel, Aerotech actually looks quite rigid. You can see his arms pretty much locked at a 90-degree angle. He's holding the wheel rather firmly. But in terms of his driving style, it is so smooth.
Yeah, it's the paradox, isn't it? I remember, I think it was Martin Brundle, all those years ago on, I think it was the Silverstone Grand Prix, and don't quote me, but 2005, 2006 pre-race. He was doing a special, you'll find it on YouTube probably, driving style between Alonso, Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher. And he was saying, paradoxically, that the drivers that are the smoothest make the most inputs to the steering wheel because they're doing micro corrections all the time. They're not allowing the car to slide too much before they make that recovery correction. And so that means that the car remains stable and more planted on the road. Whereas drivers like Colin McRae, they turn in all the way, wait for the car to rotate all the way to counter steer, and then counter steer near enough to the bump stop on the steering lock. And that was a very aggressive driving style, and that's where you'd see the car go from side to side all the time. And you know, both styles can be very quick. It's just down to how much input you want to put into the wheel and how much on the limit you want to be realistically.
Absolutely, and it is nice to see that real world comparison all does compare to the virtual world as well. As Amphcephalosys just taking a nice trip through the trees.
Down there, I remember that was where Aerotech crashed 4 seasons ago, as he said. Crashing exactly where Ryan got it wrong as well. Very tricky downhill braking, and yeah, just got it completely wrong on the brakes, locked up, and again, very lucky.
Very, very lucky to keep that car wandering in a straight line, not only in one piece, but in a straight line as well. I wouldn't be surprised there is some minor or major damage to the suspension potentially on the rear left of that car, but everybody else making their way through nice and calmly. Watching aboard with Ryan and Aerotech, of course, the first drivers to progress out onto this 13.5-kilometre stage will be making it through to the end nice and calmly, and will be hoping to try and lay themselves up quite nicely for the final run in towards the power stage.
Yeah, it's a nice and calm run to the power stage. These stages are anything but calm for the drivers. Lovely to spectate. I'm just sat here with my popcorn here. I wish, but anyway, the stages are somewhat unique, I'd say, in that, you know, they can be driven smoothly and calmly, but if you want to get anywhere close to the limit here, you have to start pushing things, and that's what happens, is the drivers sort of try in the corner where they're maybe more confident, or where they think, that corner looks quite open, they will just go for it, and in some circumstances it works out fine. In other circumstances, what happened to Vlembar and to Ryan and to Encephalosis, and also to Henry Cookie as well earlier, the DNF, can happen so easily.
Certainly can indeed, and it happens to the best of drivers. We've seen it happen pretty much, I think, almost to every driver over the course of the last 6 and a bit seasons here in the Create Series WRC. It's been a rite of passage for many of those to not only retire from a rally, but also probably to DNF from a rally through a crash or a fall off a cliff. And I think if you talk to any of the drivers that are participating this afternoon, they'll have their own little war stories to share.
Yes, this is a kind of rally where you have at least one incident, at least one problem, whether it's just a spin or clipping a rock or something. You know, it will always happen. Otherwise, you're not driving fast enough, as some drivers would say. It's interesting also to note here the difference in car and driving style. You can see Ryan here being a little bit smoother, but you can see the car is rotating a lot, especially on the apex. That's because the Alpine that he's driving is a rear-engined car, which means especially on this downhill section, all of that weight is trying to move forwards on the car, and so the rear of the car effectively is trying to overtake the front of the car. Now, whether you're turning left or right, that means that either it'll go left or go right, and you've got to oversteer, correct it. But if you get it just right, as Ryan is doing right now, it can help rotate the car, and you can get very early on the power, and that makes the Alpine very potent to just get the maximum time on these stages. On the contrary, Aerotech there in the Mark 1 Escort, quite a lightweight car anyway, but front engine, gives you the stability to be maybe a bit more committed into the turns, a bit more on the limit all the time, and just confident in your own ability. So two different driving styles, and you can see with Aerotech here, he's trying to get it rotated, and then as soon as he's on the apex, once he's got that front engine compartment that's so heavy stopped, he can then rotate the car, but he can't carry as much speed as Ryan can in the Alpine. So two different ways of taking a corner just based on the car that you're driving, maybe even the setup that you're using, and you've just got to adapt to it as Ryan tapping the wall once there again.
Yeah, it's not been the best run for Ryan. Maybe a little bit of concentration gone, but maybe, obviously, it's a longer stage than we've had the last few times out, and that can, in itself, contribute to some fatigue, mental fatigue, and I'm sure there'll be an explanation for it. I think I'll just be praying that he can get to the end and see the checkered flag boards. He's not far away, of course. Heading under the arch means he's incredibly close to the finish, and I think he will be relieved to see at least the end or the marshals parking his car up.
Yeah, this last little bit of stage is very deceiving here because it sort of opens up, but you've got a few very tight corners, one of which Ryan has been through there just a few corners ago. But I think he's home and dry now, flat out to the finish. Yeah, there's the finish board. The orange board, don't stop at that one. Yellow board, sorry. And then red board is the finish line. Your time is registered as of that. Many drivers stop at the yellow boards. I've seen it so many times. I've done it myself as well. You have to carry on until the red boards to register your time. And, you know, it's so tempting to just park up by the side of the stage. I must say it's one of the things that you always have to remember, and we've even seen it in the WRC sometimes with drivers crossing the line and going, oh, hang on, I've got an extra 50 meters to do.
It is one of those things because obviously we've done 6 seasons of this already, and there might be people that are just tuning in going, oh, what's all this rally lark that we're talking about for the next hour or so? Obviously we've got 3 different arches that the drivers pass under as they head their way to the finish of the stage. You've got the blank arch, which generally is a few meters out, and then you've got the yellow and then the red boards. What is the difference between those, or what are the significance of those?
So the first boards that you'll encounter, well, there's different boards. I'll start from the longer stages. The longer stages normally have a board halfway through. Oh, Aerotech just clipping the rocks there. I think that was quite lucky, sort of like straighten the steering, hitting the wall. Trying to ricochet off the wall, but you can go over the wall sometimes if you do that, so quite lucky there. The first boards that you can encounter is on a long stage. If you're halfway through, sometimes there's a board just marking the halfway point or marking 1/3 of the stage through. That's just more of a visual marker for timing and stuff like that, and also in real life they have those boards on a particularly long stage. On a shorter stage, the first board you'll encounter, same as the long stage, after passing that mid-stage board, is the 1 mile to go board. So I think Aerotech might have already passed it, but at some point here you will have a board just indicating, look, the end of the stage is coming up. It's more of a safety board, just to get the driver alert that the stage finish is coming up, because in the past, for example, there's been so many spectators on some stages that drivers haven't seen the finish line. And so there's a memorable event in Catalonia, I think 1996 or 1997, where Colin McRae is going flat out and he hasn't realised he's reached the end of the stage, and he's flat out on just stamping on the brakes to not hit the marshals at the end of the stage, basically. So as a new safety feature, you've got that 1 mile board, which I'm confident now Aerotech has passed. And then as we get to the finish line here, the yellow board here, so it's still got the boards, but it's got 2 yellow markers either side, is the warning finish line coming up. And then the red board here is the finish line. Your time is registered. And then the ultimate white board here is the stop line, so where the marshals are at, where in real life you'd give your time card in for them to register your time, and so do all of the formalities that it takes to compete in a real life rally. So quite a complicated thing, but the first game actually that has replicated it 1-to-1 with real life, so I've got to give them credit on that. Good bit of realism there.
That's actually fascinating, and obviously I'm sure there's people that were sitting in and going, "Oh, what are all these? Are they just sponsor boards, or are they actually functional?" Obviously, that explanation probably sums it up pretty nice and perfectly. So thank you for that, Isa. As we do have more people coming across those timing boards as well, and one of those will be JPH in that Hillman Avenger that is still plodding along in the hills of Greece.
One of the most sturdy cars that I know of, so yeah, I'm not surprised, and quite an easy one to handle as well. It's not got the amount of power, but it's quite lightweight. I think it's the second lightest car in the class, outclassed by the Alpine in most stages, just because of the fact that again that Alpine is rear-engined and got that extra turn in. But the 131 Abarth, the Blenbar's driving is kind of a middle road car. It's not the best on any stage, but it's second or third best. I think third best in Greece. And I'm hearing we are getting an interview with Ancephalosis, perhaps, if we can get him in at some point. Here we go. Ancephalosis, it's Rally Greece, and everybody's had a few mistakes at this stage, but it looks good for you so far. So how's the rally going in your own terms?
Yeah. I mean, greasy Greece, man. It's always been a tricky one for me, for everybody. But it's always struck a little bit of fear in my heart, man. I remember from the first time I did a club here, um, it felt like that week everybody put their club in Greece, and I don't think I finished a single one, and it like left this permanent implant in my head of like Greece bad, Greece die. So today I am listening to that in the back of my head, Greece bad, Greece die, and I'm going slow. You might even say I'm babying it. I've made a few mistakes, but I've managed to keep them in places where I wasn't by a cliff. It was just kind of like got spun out. Managed to avoid Austin Powers too. I think every time just had to kind of once or twice give a little forward, backward, and then we were back on the road. So in my terms, we are super duper happy to just still be on the cliff and not at the bottom of the cliff.
Yeah, amazing. It's been a good drive for you so far. Obviously, we've got 3 more stages to go, 7, 8, and 9, and obviously the infamous power stage, which will be a bit of a quick blast in nighttime. How's that coming into the
Ooh.
equation? It's going to be dark. It's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I don't have much practice for this run. I'm pretty much going in blind, so I didn't even know it was going to be dark. It doesn't change much in terms of my strategy. I'm going to go slow and try not to overdrive, but always the dark adds an extra element. If you can't quite see, I'll have to slow it down that much more, especially in the faster sections, because in Greece, man, you can get caught off in the blink of an eye. It happens so fast, and there's just once you realize you're caught out, there's just no stopping it.
Yeah, Aerotech was mentioning actually in terms of strategy the tires. He was unsure about his tire strategy. He was doing starting on the softs for 2 stages, going on to the hards
Hmm.
for 4, and then finishing with 3 stages on the soft compound tires. What's your strategy, and do you think he can do 3 stages on the softs?
I I hope he can. I'll be praying for him. I'm trusting the other folks for the tire strategy on this one. Like I said, I didn't get much practice this week, but they said medium, soft, which sounds to me like pretty much the standard creator series setup. A lot of the times that works out well. You go mediums for most of it, and then try to work out when to squeeze in the softs at the end. Uh, I think I'm just gonna do the very last stage, but I'll have to confer with the other guys because I'm stealing their strategy this week.
Sometimes a shared strategy is a combined strategy, and sometimes it works out for you.
Yeah, hope so. Hope so.
Amazing. Well, as a philosopher, unless John's got anything further for you,
I always have questions,
well, go
but
for it.
I'll go with one little last question, I guess. Are we going to see a big power stage push? I know you say you want to keep it calm and consistent, but are you tempted?
It's always tempting, but man, again, my version of push is staying on. The thought even crossed my mind while I was driving today and focusing on staying on. I was like, man, how many stages have I lost because I overdrove when I could have just drove? And it was like poetry, like snapping fingers in the back of my head when I said that stupid sentence in my head. But like for real, how many times do I want to lose a stage by going a little too hard when I literally could have just drove through it? So I'm not gonna be, you know, I'm not gonna be babying it too hard, but I'm also not gonna send it off the cliff on the power stage after gently making my way through 8 or 9 other stages. I don't want to risk it all on the power stage, if that makes sense.
Certainly does.
Well, amazing stuff, Fantabulous, and best of luck for not only the last 3, but the power stage as well. Hopefully, no cliffs come a calling for you.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. Thank you very
Amazing
much.
stuff. Best of luck for you. Well, it looks like drivers have got themselves in towards stage 7 at the moment, and again, it's Ryan and Aerotech that lead us away, and I think they'll be thankful that the stages do indeed get shorter from this point onwards. 11 kilometres here for stage 7 of 9.
We have a little bit of everything in Creator Series, don't we? We have night stages, daytime stages, stages where you're hanging off of a cliff, other stages where you're blasting it through a valley with water splashes and vast open areas. We also have, apparently, with Ancephalosis, poetry and philosophy. So, you know, it's a mix of everything here on the Creator Series. One thing that I also hope that we don't have for once is a one-man show at the end of the stages. Famously, a few seasons back, where Punju was the only person to finish the broadcast still driving. So yeah, thankfully we shouldn't have that with drivers seemingly a bit more confident. It was in the same car class as well, just want to point that out.
It was, but also I think if we cast our mind back then, those were back in the days where if you DNF'd from a rally, you couldn't reset to the next service point, could you? It was game over for the entire rally.
Yes, it was, yes. They changed quite recently afterwards. After that, they added the option to be able to carry on at the next service, which I find is a good compromise, and just allows people to sort of get the most out of their experience. Although, if you've crashed 3 or 4 times and gone down the bank, I'm not sure how much confidence is left in you to carry on after that. It's quite a grueling stage in terms of, and just rally in general, in terms of just mentally in your head. You have to be confident. And looking at it, you know, Ryan is gaining in confidence. He's very late on the brakes.
I was about to say this. Not only is he looking absolutely incredible, but he's also driving the same car that Tom was driving, if you can cast your mind back. And I think we're at a very similar stage where he actually threw that Alpine off a cliff, and after saying the very famous words, I think we're feeling good here.
I'm trying to think back which stage that... I think it was a different stage. If I'm not mistaken, it was a different stage. Yeah, I think it was actually on the previous stage. The previous stage, because he just got halfway through it, and it was on an open section, tightening corner, which is a little bit off camber. He just went sliding off of the edge, and yeah, into a DNF. Very easily done, it must be said.
I'd love for him to come back and try rally on his new motion sim. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's absolutely insane. He's had a 1-to-1 scale F1 car replicated in a motion rig. He's got a D-box set up, so every single corner he feels in this. It's absolutely insane, and probably taking that level of racing and content creation to a whole new level. I'd love to see him try it out on something like Rallycross or something like Rally as well, just to see how it all fares.
I'm going to start this comment by apologising preemptively to Tom if he ever watches this, which I hope he doesn't, but he even replicates the steering column failures that have happened in certain F1 cars, which is quite unfortunate for him, but I appreciate his commitment to realism, it must be said.
It's an insane build, and all props to him. And as he said, that was quite a funny moment when his steering wheel became the most Fernando Alonso-esque moment you could have asked for in recent Formula history. But we'll continue back to all of our drivers. We've got 4 on the screens at the moment. Ryan, Aerotech, Vlemba and JPH all taking up a individual quartet of the screen, and they're all navigating through rather nicely. Nothing too major to report on, but it is starting to get dark out there in Greece.
The only advantage of this is about 2 or 3 stages ago they had this exact bit of stage, so they'll at least have that little bit of knowledge of where the corners go. It's not exactly nighttime conditions here, so even if you don't have the headlights on like Ryan, you can still see the stage layout, as you can see from JPH's perspective most. You've still got a lot of bit of ambient light, and you can see the roadsides clearly. But for the last 2 stages, oh, it's going to be tricky. Just because drivers, as you mentioned earlier, there's a little bit of tiredness, and for Ryan, I think he's gone too fast into the hairpin. Yeah, he's got his car beached on the mound of gravel, and a corner cut penalty to boot as well. So yeah, I think he's just gone too fast into there, just hit the brakes and spun round. Much better than not hitting the brakes and going over the side and getting a reset, or indeed a DNF. But very, very easy to do. I think he's being a little bit too harsh on himself at this point. You know, it happens. He's driving very well, and you have to, in rally, you have to push the limit, make the mistakes before you become that really, really fast driver. If drivers saw the amount of mistakes that, for example, myself, Lembar, Kamikaze, and the esports drivers that drive on this game have made over the years, they'd be astounded by how many crashes we've had.
Oh, and as they say, crashes make perfection. You've got to have those bad moments to realise where the limits are in many aspects of the word. And you don't learn the capabilities of the car. You don't learn how everything handles until you, as you say, dip a tyre off the edge of a cliff, or clip it as Vlembar sends that car pretty much at a 90-degree angle to where he wanted to be pointing.
Lucky, I must say. Either he's doing it on purpose, and that I've got to give him credit for that, or he's just getting a little bit lucky at the moment. But you know, he's that sort of driver where he makes it look as if he was like all out of control, and yet in his head he'll have a contingency plan. He'll just get on with it and recover the car most of the time. So you know, you've got to give him credit for that, because I don't know many drivers that are able to do that, and I'm certainly not one of those drivers. So you know, to have that extra little bit of sort of niche skill to be able to just commit to the corner. Here's the corner where Ryan spun at. So as you can see, it's left on the braking. So if you hit the brakes too late, you're turning and braking at the same time. And you know, in a Formula 1 car, you'd lock up the front tires. In a rally car, downhill, you'll lock the rears and spin around, and that'll be the end of that. So I think in hindsight, Ryan was sort of, how to put it, yeah, I think just lucky to get away with it, to be honest. And it could have been a lot worse, let's put it that way.
Certainly could do, and I think you've got to have a certain element of luck on your side. We saw that at the end of the previous season, especially when it came down to the championship winning or the championship losing contenders. And I think, especially in an opening round, when you want to set up the rest of the season, this is a critical moment.
Yeah, every result counts, and if you get a good opening rally, it puts the pressure on the other people to start catching up with you and chasing you. You know, yeah, mistakes come around and go around, and you'll find over the course of a season there's sort of an average in mistakes. But yeah, to win a championship, you have to be a little bit lucky. That's nature of the game, really. You can't have 100% fair competition. It never works out that way, even if you try. So you've just got to do your best and keep pushing. And I think a lot of drivers have quite a bit of optimism starting the season off here with a very difficult round. It means that, you know, if they have a bad opening round, they can use some of the later rounds that they're a bit more confident in to just build back that confidence, get more points on the board, close into their rivals. Whereas if you have an event like this toward the end of the season, it's like, oh, well, either I'm in the hunt and I can't push flat out, which is annoying, or I need a good result, but this isn't going to be it. And so it can be a bit frustrating. So having it first round of the season is just that flat-out experience that I think a lot of drivers crave.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they progress. We go, and of course we head to Rally Sweden next week out, and after that we've got some fantastic rallies coming up. Portugal, we've got, well, mine's now fading me. I did have them all up earlier. Let me just hop to that page as I load them all up on my second screen.
Coming up.
Yeah, Sweden, Iberia, Poland.
Yeah, Pacifico, Portugal, and Croatia, and the last one is Rally Italy, Sardinia. But an interesting mix of cars as well, it must be said, because we have a majority, again, four-wheel drive. That's no surprise, really, as many of the cars post-1990s are all four-wheel drive. But a few rear-wheel drive cars thrown in there as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun few adventures for most of our creators in watching aboard with JPH as he makes his way up towards the line. 1 mile to go. Just around the nice right hairpin, just will come up across the line here. I got completely wrong. That wasn't the mile to go marker. That was the prepare to stop marker as he does come across the line just over the 8-minute mark.
Yeah, a lot of the problems with these markers is sometimes they're parked right on the apex. So on a different stage, it can be maybe placed after the corner, but sometimes it moves just that a few meters. And so you go into the turn and you go, I'm going to hit that marker. There's nothing I can do about it. And although in real life they're made out of wood, so they will break. In the game, they're very, very solid. I can say that from experience. Maybe I'm self-reporting there a little bit, but there we go. As we see Ryan into the stage now, quite a bit darker now. So even though Ryan's got the lights off, he might struggle toward the end of this one. Just want to say also on the markers, a bit of trivia knowledge. There's been quite a few funny incidents or annoying incidents for drivers over the years, with I think it was Kalle Rovanperä crashing into one of the end stage markers at the end or toward the end of Rally Sweden 2020. Didn't cause damage, but it was quite funny seeing the wood being trailed around by the car for half a stage. You had Elfyn Evans crashing, I think in 2022, missing the finish basically and going over a snowbank from Rally Sweden.
Nice.
And then more recently, I think it was in Central European Rally, although I think I'm mistaken on that one. I'll have to double check at some point. Oyt Tanak managed to completely collect the end of stage, not the end of stage, but the announcement 1 mile to go marker board, and get stuck on it. Basically, had to reverse and lost a lot of time on it. So those little markers can cause quite a few problems.
They certainly can, and I think we've seen it over the course of the virtual world as well. Quite a few drivers have collided with that, with the end post. I think Hoodie Pete famously, when he came and joined in for a couple of WRC rallies, either crashed into a marshal or crashed into the finishing post, extending his time somewhat before he managed to get across for the official time to count. But none of our drivers so far have had any major instance with some of the beams and the barriers that do cross over the runs downhill. A little bit of a tap there for Ryan. Ooh, that was close.
Wow, just too much speed, and he's confident. That shows confidence, paradoxically. But, you know, when you've got such little grip, and more importantly, on the section of stage where he had a puncture earlier on, so that might have thrown off his calculations of how much grip there was. You know, that was very, very close to disaster once again. And as you can see, the water splashes do not clear immediately on the screen, and so sometimes on these flat out sections you're just calculating where you need to go and just hoping for the best, effectively. Just wanted to do a little bit of an update, if you don't mind, TK, on the standings for the moment. So you've got Vlembar sat in 4th overall after stage 7, with JPH being second place runner so far in 16th. He's managed to build a tiny bit more of a gap, but the gap is only 7 seconds to Ryan LAT3. So they are locked in a battle right now with 3 stages to go between RC, JPH and Ryan. And Aerotech has fallen down a little bit to 27th place, about a minute behind the other two there. So the top 3 places are locked in battle for the moment, but Vlembar has a decisive advantage for the moment.
Certainly does. Lots still can go right, can go wrong as well as we head into we're in the penultimate stage here. Of course, power stage still to come, and it is one of the shortest on this rally overall, just over 5 kilometers for our drivers to try and put their foot to the floor and light up the tyres as much as they possibly can, get the best result. There is a bonus set of points on offer.
Yep. Bonus set of points can make the difference. 5 points. You can score big, obviously, with 25 points on offer for the winner overall of the Creator Series rally. But those 5 points, when you're fighting, especially in the midfield, can be crucial. And that's why we hear from a lot of the drivers saying we're going medium, and soft compound on the tyres. is because that is the strategy to maximize the speed in the power stage. And there has been a tendency for at least the last 2 or 3 seasons to just default immediately to that strategy. To make the most of it. It can mean that you run the risk of being overtaken overall by somebody who switches tires earlier on, but I think the consensus and sort of a, I don't want to say a gentleman's agreement, but a non-written agreement, just that it's funnier that way and gives a lot more anticipation, let's call it, to the last stage.
Yeah, tends to be what happens, especially with, let's just say, the comedic value of car classes being chosen by a considerable number of our creators now, which is something I'm really enjoying, seeing a wide variety, not necessarily just the meta car being chosen, some of the more competitive classes. And it does allow, ooh, what's this? JPH with a rare mistake, gets the pause, gets the reset.
I am so surprised with that, because he must have been just going slow enough to get that reset. I think it's 10 miles per hour, the cutoff point, to where you can no longer reset if you're going faster than that. So I think he's going to be feeling very, very lucky. His encephalosis goes all the way up the bank as well, avoids rolling and manages to keep it on the stage. The mistakes are happening now, aren't they?
They certainly are indeed, and they seem to be coming thick and fast, especially as we head in towards the night stages. Not only is the visibility somewhat reduced, but of course the mental fatigue is starting to creep in on a few of our drivers as well, and I'm sure we'll see probably a few more mistakes from a few more drivers.
That's a jinx if I've ever heard one. Thank you for saying that. It wasn't me, once again. Audience, I want you to note. Gareth, I want you to write this down. the only event possibly in Creator Series history where I won't be the one to maximally jinx everybody. Although it must be said, we've been doing quite all right so far. I think we've been helped a lot by Aerotech. That I've just been told that's the ultimate jinx, and now I'm realizing that I might have made a grave mistake.
I'd like to point out from here on in, any incident is Isaac's fault. He said we weren't doing too badly, and I'm making no further comment on the matter in order to avoid counter-jinxing him.
Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
Right across the line in the top left-hand side of your screen. First driver to finish off the penultimate stage. They will be followed very shortly by Aerotech and Vlembart, not far off as well. So we are vastly and quickly approaching the power stage here, folks. An extra 5 points. Well, actually 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 points available down for the top 5 fastest drivers over the course of that power stage. And in a round so competitive as here in the Creator Series WRC, every point is absolutely valuable.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, there's maximum of 30 points. And if you can get that gap over, especially drivers that you think you'll be fighting against in the season, then it can be so much more pressure added on. And I remember a lot of drivers last season talking about the pressure and looking at the points and trying to figure out what they can do to catch up the points or to keep their points advantage. So it can be very decisive. So we've got Ryan in the top 10 there. Of that stage, so he's had a really good run through there. As you can note, many of the top times coming from either the Alpine or the Mark 1 Escort. So those are the two, I'd say, favorite cars. Possibly the two easiest to be fast with. Although Vlembar's proving us all wrong with the 1-through-1 bar.
Yeah, he's absolutely sending the fear into realms pretty much unknown for the Italian car makers, and he seems to be doing a rather good job at it nonetheless. It wouldn't be surprised if this is an incredibly competitive time for Vlembar, of course. Spends a lot of his time practicing and making sure every single detail of the run is perfect. Yes, there's mistakes here and there, but everybody else as well has it in them to try and put a generational run in this power stage.
Yeah, I will say this on record, although I hope they never come back and listen to this. I find one of the most enjoyable bits of this is just chatting to the drivers before an event, after an event, or if I'm driving myself during an event, because they're all class acts. They're so much good fun. They've always got good stories or interesting tips and tricks that some of which even I haven't heard of. And so sharing that knowledge, sharing that enjoyment, you know, they are all so good people, and that's, I think, what makes it interesting and enjoyable to watch as well, is just the amount of not only talent on display, but also just how you can be fast and also not arrogant about it. And that's something that sometimes is lost by a few people.
I think you're absolutely right, and especially in esports as well. It's one of those things that you can be quick and have a bit of an ego about yourself, but a lot of the times the gentlemen and the ladies that come in as well, they always put that ego aside. It's such a friendly community here in the Creator Series WRC. Everybody is there to help out, whether they're running, whether they're just chatting beforehand. Even we've had people come into the chat as well, offering maybe some advice, maybe some things that they've done wrong in the course of that rally as well. And it's lovely to see just how everybody gets behind one another, and it's all to push it all up.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of drivers and content creators just like being in a group uh, where everybody shares a lot of values. And we love being in a thing where we watch other people driving. For example, some twit here that might be called is something amusing might be driving this stage. This was some footage that we had for the preview of the Hard Chargers event. So you can see how narrow the roads are. Sometimes you don't get so much of a good glimpse of how close to the limit you have to be to go fast on these stages. But with these old school cars, you have to be sort of swapping ends of the car every single time, and it can be so tricky to remain focused. And especially if you're chatting to other drivers and just having a good time, you can get it so wrong so easily. And that is what we've been seeing. Ryan is motivated, but let's put it that way. Disco party.
It's always a party in the car with Ryan. The lights are lit above his head. They're lit on and off in his car. And for the power stage, it is foot to the floor in the final stage. Ryan in the Alpine Renault E110. Let's see what he's able to lay down. Just over 5 kilometers worth of rally stage left to go in this Greek rally. And it's been an absolute pleasure to see how they've all progressed through so far.
Indeed, this stage a favourite of many drivers. It's the shortest stage of the Greek rally in game, so just over 5 kilometers. So they will want to push very hard on this one. Most of the drivers will know at least a portion of it very well, and so that will normally mean that we have just an absolute flat-out push for the power stage, which is lovely, as we've got Aerotech and Ryan a few corners away from each other, but we can see the difference in driving styles, and I have no idea who can be fastest on this one, because you've got essentially a battle, and I'm just going to update myself on the times to give you a bit of context as to who is in front, but it's looking like they're both pushing flat out.
Certainly are, and I think it'll be incredibly close between the two of them. If we've known anything over the last 8 stages, it's going to be incredibly close on the power stage as well. It could even come down to how well they've looked after their tyres and also how well they've looked after the car as well. Damage could be a factor.
So just an update on the leaderboard here. Ryan has managed to have a wonderful stage in stage 8 and has jumped to a gap second to JPH. Sorry, as I appear to be having a few possibly. Oh no, it's not my end. Okay, I take it back. It's not my end. Yeah, JPH falling behind Ryan a little bit, but it's still game on, and Aerotech is still in the hunt as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and let's see how we go. Henry's apparently already finished off the power stage. He got 2 stage maximums. And obviously I think he was up slightly early tomorrow morning. So it's good to see him as always. I'm sure we'll see him back next week as well. But everybody else, we'll see how it progresses through. And Ryan looking like he's got a little bit of an edge. We'll see the splits here as they come across the halfway point of this final stage. It's a 2:30 something for Aerotech, 2:33 for Aerotech. I think it's going to be a little bit, well, more on the side of Ryan Deflate more. It was 2:33 for Aerotech. Oh, it's going to be incredibly close between the two of them, though. Probably closer than I actually once thought. 2:31.6 for Ryan.
Yeah, he's got that sort of look on his face that he is so focused right now, but he's also got a tiny look of like frustration, let's call it. And I hope that he doesn't overdrive the car. One of the things with a rear-engine car here is that you can over-rotate the car, and it can be so tricky to get the traction down, to get the braking points right, and you can lose quite a bit of time. So quite a technical stage to drive in the Alpine. Probably I want to be in the Mark 1 Escort for this one, but you know, if you're a good driver, you can make any car work. So Ryan's certainly making it work so far, and I think the gaps are going to be very close because of the short nature of the stage.
Yeah, it's gonna be close, and I think it is gonna come down to those barest margins, not only between Ryan and Aerotech here, but across the rest of the field as well. All of our drivers are so incredibly talented when it comes to putting down the fast laps in the power stage and seeing how they navigate through the twists and turns. We're over halfway through, nearly about at the 3/4 mark, and you see where Ryan has started to make the advantage count. He is down on his personal delta, as you can see just below at the bottom end of his screen there, but he is still faster than Aerotech, his competitor, on the right hand side.
Yeah, it's not by much, it's single digits, so just probably tire wear if nothing else, because those times are usually taken from time trial. So most of the times you'll have done that with a fresh set of tyres, although it's possible that Ryan has changed tyres on this final stage here. As you can see, up on the last split there, clipping the bank, taking too much speed into there. It's a corner that tightens, and also there's rocks on the outside of that apex there, so very, very lucky, as I think he's pushing the limit here. He'll probably get a very good stage time, but he'll be counting his lucky stars at the end, that's for sure. Once again, for Ryan, he gets quicker and quicker as the rally goes on, and I think toward the end of this season we might see him competing for victories yet again. Is he can sort of dial in that peak performance right at the start. Aerotech's going for a spin here. Yeah, just couldn't recover the car in time. I think he was trying to change gear, and no, he's sliding down. The reset penalty, that's going to be so frustrating, but I think he was trying to change down the gear and he just missed the shift a little bit, and that got him all crossed up into that corner, and with no drive to the tyres he couldn't get it spun around in time to avoid that little spin.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for Aerotech, and you can see the look on his face. Ryan once again flashing the headlights as he comes up towards the finish of the stage. I think you'd be relieved to see it crosses the line in a 5:19, 5:38 for Aerotech at the final time of RC. I think that minor mistake could have absolutely caused him to lose out on some crucial power stage points. We've got Vlembar and JPH on your screens at the moment. They're about 1/2 and 1/4 of the way through respectively on your left and your right, and they've still got about 2.5-3 kilometers to go for each of them.
Yeah, indeed. This is one of those stages where, after trying to, we've talked about it earlier, trying to survive the entire rally as a 2:25, that is nearly 6 seconds up on Ryan's time there, and he's only halfway through the stage. So that's where you see the drivers sort of really coming into their element, is that some of the drivers are just able to switch from survival modes to full attack modes, and that's usually where the difference is made over a season, is these power stage points. Ever since they brought it into the WRC, there's been titles that have been decided just by power stage points and the amount of points accumulated over the season. So it's so important to be able to have that ability to just put all of the rest of it behind you and just try and drive 99% to try and outwit everybody on the power stage. But easier said than done, especially in Greece with rear-wheel drive.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see, and obviously there will be times coming across the board and seeing how everybody else handles the progression at the moment. We have got Ryan, I'm sure, available for an interview at some point later on, just to see how he feels the run went. We can always cast our mind back to the first stage. We got that puncture, and hasn't had the best run since then.
Yeah, a lot of drivers I think will be just saying how lucky they got at some point. The Henry Cookie, one of the drivers that has not been very lucky this round, and I think he'll be looking to maybe be just at the tip of the spear, let's call it, in terms of pace on the next few rounds. But yeah, it's one of those things. He's had 2 rounds now on the Creator Series, and you have to start somewhere, and being part of a broadcast, having to stick to a schedule can be quite off-putting at the start. So I have no doubt that he will get used to it and provide those performances that we know he's capable of. But that goes for many drivers. They're getting back into the swing of things, a couple of weeks off, and sometimes they don't even play the game for a couple of weeks. It takes a round or two to get back into the swing of things.
Absolutely, and especially we've had a bit of a switch up as well. You mentioned that they've had a couple of weeks off. We had the Hard Chargers release, which a few of the creators came and got involved with, so it is interesting to see how everything's been handled. Obviously, there is a different style of event at that time. You're all going at once, not these staggered starts, which we're seeing now that back in traditional clubs action is running through. But we are watching on board with Vlembar as he runs up towards the end of the stage. What's it going to be, a 5:06 across the line? That's absolutely impressive for himself, which means we've got about 30 seconds left where JPH stands to finish.
Yeah, P4 overall on the power stage, and I think that's comfortably going to put him in the lead of the power stage. I don't see anybody, maybe apart from Henry Cookie, able to beat that time or get close to it. JPH has been struggling, I think, with a little bit of lack of traction, it seems. The revs building very, very high, but the car not really going anywhere. So perhaps a setup thing there, or just a little bit of imbalance that's causing the tires to slide quite a bit. But I think Ryan is safe here. He needs to have a mega stage time, and the last split that I checked, yeah, JPH was down by a few seconds, so already past the time of Lembar. It's probably going to be a 5:18, something like that, as we go across the line, just under 5:17.7, which puts him in the top 12, if I'm not mistaken, on this stage. So faster than Ryan in the end, but only by 2 seconds. So that means that Ryan finishes provisionally P2, and RCJPH rounds out the podium in P3 with Aerotech P4.
Good final stage, that.
Amazing stuff from all of our creators here this afternoon. It's been fantastic, and I think we are going to get Vlembar in for an interview. First time we've chatted to you for a bit of a while, and talk us through how the rallies went for yourself. We think we spotted a couple of issues, maybe a couple of clips of the inside of the cliffs, but as it seems to have run, a very, very solid run from you.
Yeah, it went way better than I expected, or like how it was in my practice run. From my practice, I honestly expected at least one terminal, because yeah, rear-wheel drive on controller is definitely not the easiest. And then yeah, I think I can be lucky it's like a slow rally, not like a fast gravel rally like Finland, for example, or so, because I don't think I would have any chance there. But yeah, I don't know if you saw it. I had some few moments where I clipped something, but I also had like a big moment where I had the tiniest bit of contact with like banking on the outside, and it rolled me and nearly sent me off a cliff, or basically did send me, but got saved by a bush. So yeah, I think I got lucky there, and yeah, beside that, I would say it was actually going better than expected, and probably better than possible, if I'm honest.
I'd have to say to that, there's in rally a form of sort of dark art of the art of crashing, let's call it, for lack of better term. You can call it luck. I'd say there's a little bit of skill involved to know when you're pushing it too much, and to to be able to recover the car. We've seen multiple instances this rally where you've been able to just save incidents where other people have either DNF'd or got big damage. So do you think it's 100% luck, or do you have calculations in your head to not only go so fast but also just keep it 99% all the time?
Yeah, I mean, except a few moments where I was, yeah, like I said, a bit unlucky with like clipping a few rocks. Nothing big happened, like maybe going on two wheels for a short moment, but I really did try to get a setup working, which is basically as safe as possible. Like for example, I didn't go high, like max on the right side. I think I was like, I'm gonna say like 75%. So I basically, I don't know if it actually works like that, but so it's like in fast corners, I don't just spin basically, where like the car will just have contact a bit with the ground, so it keeps me safe. And I think that actually did help me. There was some few corners, obviously, where it's typical rear-wheel drive, where it just wants to swing you around. But yeah, I think with the setup, it really helped to like avoid these situations.
Yeah, it was a good run through for yourself, and obviously opening stage, or opening rally, should we say, of Greece. And looking ahead to the next few weeks, we head to Sweden next time out. Well, a marginally different rally in terms of overall, but obviously snow instead of gravel. How are you feeling your chances for that?
I'm gonna be much happier with the next 5 rounds, I think, which are all 4-wheel drive. before we get to the like penultimate round in Group B rear-wheel drive, where I'm gonna have some fun again. But yeah, I'm gonna feel a lot safer for the next few rallies. And I think,
Isn't John
yeah,
anything? Oh, sorry.
snow is not too bad for me, so we'll see.
And I guess I'll probably just want to ask a last question. Seeing brilliant performance despite a possible sort of lack of performance with the controller. How much does not having confirmed sort of like title rivals such as Kamikaze in the hunts change your view of the season?
I think in general it's a bit easier for me. I would say, because obviously the less people who are equal to my pace, basically, the higher chance I have to just get as much points as possible every week. But it's not gonna change the fact that there's obviously one person still here who is arguably the quickest. But yeah, I think it's for sure plays into my hands.
I don't know who you were referencing there.
Me
We'll
neither.
have to figure it out one next time, I guess.
Well, Vlebar, fantastic stuff. Great to speak to you as always, and congratulations once again on a fantastic rally race.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Well, we're going to round it off with JPH by the looks of things. We have managed to drag him in just the last second there. JPH, talk us through how the rally went from your perspective, obviously taking the Hillman Avenger through the hills of Greece.
Yeah, evening guys. Yeah, I've basically gone for Shed of the Day award with the Avenger, a bit of fun. Yeah, I think pretty much one easily, one maybe two minor errors during the event. Otherwise, it's really fun. And quite happy with the pace of it, really, considering we're up against the Alpines and the Esports. So yeah, no, it was a lot of fun in the Avenger, I must admit.
What do you like the most about the car? It's a different choice, so what's the one thing?
Well, there's not really one thing, to be honest. I kind of this season, because I'm missing around this season, and which kind of halts any sort of championship sort of run, because obviously with you and Glenbar and it being so consistent half the time, it's going to be quite difficult with a zero score on the board. So this season, I'm basically sort of going along the ideas of picking some weird and wonderful cars and just having a bit of fun with them and just seeing what I can do with them. And I must admit, the Sunbeam was a potential choice for tonight, because I do like the Sunbeam. But yeah, I went with the Avenger for Shed of the Day award, and it's definitely achieved that, I think.
It's been a good rally out, and I think there's been quite a few challenges for drivers all across the field, not only from the start to the end. There was punctures, there was damage, there was probably a little bit of everything, including a couple of DNFs as well. But you obviously said what you liked about the car. What was probably the worst moment in that rally for you? Was there a moment that you kind of went, "Oh, what's going on here"?
I probably only really one, and that was in the penultimate stage. The brakes by the second half of the stage were just gone. I hear the brakes in one corner, just like, no, I can't do that for you, sir. I'm not slowing you down for that. So yeah, that's about the only sort of time. But really, with these cars, it's the angles you can get them at, you can drift them through the corners, and yeah, they're just there's not a lot to not like about them, really. To be fair.
The most consistent driver is surprised at the consistency in the cars. Interesting right there. I find it fascinating how you can just talk about the easy to drive, no problem whatsoever. Meanwhile, when everybody else drives them, it's we're trying to survive. So you've got that off to 100%. It's special skill right there.
It's just rallying in general. You kind of sort of have to adapt to everything, and luckily I've kind of been doing rallying games for a long time, which admittedly for me does help quite a lot. So and obviously having the setup from Snav tonight was quite handy as well. It just drove really well. It was just really predictable tonight with the car. So I know some of them can be awkward to drive, but when they're awkward, you just sort of have fun with them, make the most of it at times. So yeah, can't really complain. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching you, John, when you get into one of these.
no idea what he's referencing there. No, I definitely don't. That's the second interview now where they've referenced me. No, I'm definitely not going to be driving this. We'll see. It's Rally Greece is one of those events. I've been saying it for the entire broadcast, where one little mistake can happen and it can be all over. And we've seen that today with, for example, Henry Cookie. So pace isn't everything around here, and I think you've demonstrated that by having pace when you needed it and keeping it consistent and on the road. And that's netted you a P3 provisionally in the Creator Series. So good points to start the season.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good start, and long may the fun era of Season 6 continue in this vein when I turn up in a car that no one expects, hopefully.
Sounds like a plan.
Certainly does. JPH, again, congratulations on a good run and a fantastic opening stint to the season 7 of the WRC Create Series. Season 6? Is it season 6 or season 7?
Yeah.
Oh, RaceNet Lives, we did that short season, didn't we? It is season 6. My apologies, JPH and folks at home, but congratulations on a good opening round, and we can't wait to see you again soon.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Well, what a rally we've had, what an event we've had out in Greece in season 6 of the WRC Crazy. You've got it right the second time of asking. Obviously, RaceNet, as our producer said in the background, has lied to us, but that's because there's some short season shenanigans going on in the background. My name has been Tom Knight, and of course, alongside me is Isaac Musing. Where can they check you out if they want to do so just a little bit more so?
They can check me crashing into a tree or rocks or down a cliff, possibly. Link below is amusing. And well, it will be a season of all time. I'm not quite sure what exactly the season is, whether it's season 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, but we're going to have a lot of action to come, as this is only round 1 of 8. And so it's been a pleasure commentating with you, TPK, and I'm sure we'll have many, many more occasions to jinx the drivers, as it should be.
I'm sure we certainly will. If you want to check out any of the Creator Series socials, they are above our heads. Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, they're all at F1 Creator Series. And if you're watching on Twitch as well this evening, why not go drop on your YouTube a follow? That's at WRC Creator Series, as we've had a bit of a split over from the F1 side of things. And that is going to be a channel more focused on rally and everything that happens in these Monday shenanigans. As for myself, I'm at They Call Me TK on pretty much every single social media. And if you would do us the pleasure of go following our lovely producer in the backhand or the background at Gareth Allen TV for all of his social media governs, as he likes to call it. But until we see you out, same time, same place next week on Monday, it's good night and God bless.